Happy New Year, and it is a Happy New Year, although it came very close to not being such a Happy New Year for a lot of people this year. I'm here to announce, in partnership with the Mint Hill Police Department and the FBI, that we have foiled a terrorist attack that was planned to take place on New Year's Eve in Mint Hill, North Carolina. The defendant here is an 18-year-old named Christian Sturtevant. He has been planning this attack for about a year, but he's been planning an attack for far longer than that. He was planning this attack in support of ISIS, and we have charged him with attempting to provide material support to a foreign terrorist organization, that organization being, of course, ISIS. Now, this is still very much an active investigation. We had to act quickly here to protect the public. So we are light on details, but we'll tell you as much as we can. And Mr. Barnacle will probably tell you more than I will about those charges, but I thought I would give you an overview of what's in the federal complaint and the charges that we charged. So Mr. Sturtevant started on the internet. He started reading ISIS material, started going to ISIS websites, making TikTok videos, and eventually reached out to what he thought was a member of ISIS. In reality, it was an undercover agent with NYPD in New York. He pledged his allegiance to ISIS with that undercover agent, and he disclosed his plans to, quote, do jihad soon. He then met a second undercover with the FBI, who he also thought was an ISIS participant, and he started to be very specific with his plans. He talked with that undercover agent, again, who he thought was ISIS. He talked about where he was planning to do this attack, which was at a grocery store and a fast food restaurant in Mint Hill, places that we go every day and don't think that we may be harmed. He talked about what means he would use to kill innocent people. He said he was going to wear a Kevlar vest and attack people with knives and hammers. And of course, he talked about when he was going to carry out this attack, which was New Year's Eve.
FBI special agents arrested him on December 31st as he was being released from a local medical facility. On Monday night, as Russ just said, the FBI's evidence response team conducted a search, an authorized search, at his home and on his cellular phone. What we found was a manifesto, which the federal complaint alleges contained detailed plans to execute a massacre on New Year's Eve as people shop, for the holidays. Without the swift action of the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, New York City Police Department, the Mint Hill Police Department, and our partners at the United States Attorney's Office for the Western District of North Carolina, we could be announcing a national tragedy. Instead, a terrorist attack was thwarted. I'll give a little background on Sturtevant. He's a U.S. citizen. He turned 18 in December of 2025. The JTTF collected evidence showing he turned his back on his country and his fellow citizens by pledging allegiance to ISIS with the intent of becoming a martyr. We allege Sturtevant was willing to sacrifice himself by committing a terrorist attack using knives and a hammer to support the murder, torture, and extreme violence that ISIS represents.
We're always considering additional charges. And so in this case in particular, because this is a very early and an ongoing investigation, we are certainly investigating and looking at other charges, whether that's a firearm charge or some other charge. Right now, we feel confident we have this charge, which is attempted material support of ISIS, but we'll see how the investigation unfolds from here.
Days after several residents of central India's Indore fell sick after consuming contaminated water, another case of typhoid outbreak has triggered a health emergency, this time in India's Gujarat. At least 102 cases of typhoid have been reported in Gandhinagar, the capital of Gujarat, with most patients, primarily children, hospitalized over the past 2 days. Now, according to officials, the outbreak is linked to contamination of drinking water due to ongoing drainage repair works being carried out by the municipal corporation. Union Home Minister Amit Shah was quick to take stock of the situation, mobilizing medical teams to launch door-to-door surveillance in the affected areas. So far, 63 surveillance teams have been deployed, around 10,000 houses have been surveyed, and nearly 38,000 people have been contacted as part of the awareness drive. A rapid response team comprising physicians and microbiologists has also been formed to monitor patients and assess the spread. So far, 6 locations have been identified as hotspots of the contamination. No fatalities have been registered, but symptomatic cases of fever, vomiting, and diarrhea continue to emerge. Officials say corrective work is underway. The outbreak comes less than a week after water contamination spawned into a major health crisis in Indore, leaving at least 10 people dead and more than 210 hospitalized. The outbreak began on December 25th last year. Residents accused authorities of ignoring their complaints about foul-smelling water in the densely populated area. At least 32 patients are currently receiving treatment in intensive care units.
Στην ουρά.
President Donald Trump has just addressed a press conference about the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Trump has detailed the operation that led to Maduro's capture and spoke about what happens to Venezuela next. Trump says that the United States is going to run Venezuela. Washington is going to run the country at least until a proper transition can take place. Trump did not provide a timeline. He did not elaborate on what a proper transition means. Trump also spoke about American oil companies and their plans for Venezuela. He said that American oil firms will be going into Venezuela and investing in the oil infrastructure. Trump also added, and I quote, "We are going to make people of Venezuela rich and safe." Trump began his speech by lauding the operation that led to Maduro's capture. He said that not a single American service member was killed and not one piece of U.S. military equipment was lost during the capture of Maduro and his wife. Trump hailed it as one of the most stunning displays of U.S. military might in American history. He said it was an assault that the planet had not seen since the Second World War. And Trump also added that no nation could have achieved what the United States achieved. The American president said that it was the United States that had caused a massive blackout in Venezuela leading up to Maduro's capture. He said that American forces had planned a second wave of attacks in case they were required. But Trump added that considering Maduro's capture, a second wave doesn't seem necessary anymore. He also said that he saw the capture live and described it like watching a TV show. That's according to the president. The U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi says that Maduro will now face the full wrath of American justice. Bondi says Maduro and his wife will face justice on American soil in American courts. And she called the Venezuelan president an alleged international narco trafficker. Bondi also highlighted that Nicolas Maduro has been charged with narco-terrorism conspiracy and cocaine importation conspiracy. Remember, the U.S. says that Maduro leads a drug cartel. It's called the Cartel de los Soles, which translates to Cartel of the Suns. The name is derived from the sun insignias that are used by Venezuelan generals on their uniforms instead of traditional stars. The U.S. charged Maduro with drug trafficking and what it described as narco-terrorism in March 2020. This was during Trump's first presidential term. The The first Trump administration also offered a $15 million reward for information that could lead to Maduro's capture. When Maduro won the disputed Venezuelan elections in early January last year, America's outgoing Joe Biden administration raised the bounty on Maduro to $25 million. On August 7th last year, the second Trump administration further increased the bounty. They doubled it to $50 million. And Attorney General Pam Bondi accused Maduro of collaborating with other drug cartels like the Tren de Aragua and the Sinaloa cartel. The Trump administration had already designated those drug cartels as foreign terrorist groups. Finally, effective November 24th last year, the so-called Cartel of the Suns was also designated as a foreign terrorist organization. The U.S. also explicitly stated that Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, was the head of this terror group. Now it seems that Maduro's capture has paved the way for the U.S. to imprison him on terrorism and drug trafficking charges. Nicolas Maduro has served as the president of Venezuela since April 2013. He took over after the death of Venezuela's longtime leader, Hugo Chavez. Before rising to power, Maduro had reportedly worked as a bus driver and then a trade union leader. Venezuela's longtime president is out of power. In a midnight operation called Absolute Resolve, the U.S. arrested Nicolas Maduro from the heart of Caracas. The Latin American country now stands at a crossroads. Maduro's arrest marks a significant moment in Venezuela's history. The constitution and existing law could not have predicted such a scenario. The speculations are on the rise. What happens next in Venezuela? A system that was completely centered around Maduro is now facing the task to adapt to his absence. On one hand, it is the constitution of Venezuela. On the other, it is the United States. Donald Trump has made it clear Washington will call the shots until Maduro's replacement is in place.
So we're going to have a group of people running it until such time as it can be put back on track, make a lot of money for the people, and give people a great way of life.
But who will lead this so-called interim government? Trump has refused to give the reign in the hands of Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado. He says she is not respected in Venezuela. Maduro's political rival and presidential runners-up Edmundo Gonzalez's name is also being touted, but there is no clarity on the matter from the White House. In the meantime, Venezuela's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez has assumed the office of the president. She has demanded immediate release of Maduro and vowed to defend Venezuela's oil reserves.
Se activa toda Venezuela.
We learned this from Commander Chavez in the face of adversities, coups, and oil sabotage. We are ready to defend Venezuela. We are ready to defend our natural resources.
Que se llama Nicolás.
Maduro's close confidant and Venezuela's interior minister has refused to back down. Diosdado Cabello said that Venezuelan people will emerge victorious.
No caigamos en la desesperanza.
Let us have complete faith, and at the end of this battle, the people of Venezuela will emerge victorious, and at the end of these attacks, we will overcome. Long live the homeland, always loyal, never traitors.
Well, this is in stark contrast with U.S. President's claim he has refused to leave Venezuela in the hands of remnants of Maduro's regime. Trump has warned Washington is ready to deploy boots on the ground if need be. Although Venezuela's military might is not much for U.S. military prowess, the move may open doors for a wider conflict.
país feliz, como todos los venezolanos. Salimos de algo que nos tenía locos, huyendo del país, ahora vamos a volver a la casa, unirnos con la familia.
Cuando uno está fuera de su país, cuando uno ha tenido que salir del país por ser perseguido político, por haber sido secuestrado, que ahora uno vea que en verdad todos esos verdugos están cayendo uno sobre otro. Eso es lo que uno dice que, wow, mi corazón llora de alegría.
Vamos a continuar, compañera Blanche.
No es un caso aislado. Venezuela representa...
Stop bombing Venezuela now!
Stop bombing Venezuela now!
It's another outrage of Trump, who doesn't give a shit about any people. His only interest is oil and greed and corruption.
Now, a social media post by the wife of prominent Trump aide Stephen Miller has become a political flashpoint in Denmark, drawing backlash and prompting criticism from Denmark's ambassador to the United States. An ex-post from Katie Miller depicting a map of Greenland colored in the American flag's color has now sparked a diplomatic row under the map. Miller's wife left a brief caption saying, "Soon." What has especially ruffled some feathers in the North Atlantic nation of Denmark is the timing of the post that just came a few hours later of the United States' massive operation in Venezuela that saw the capture of its president Nicolas Maduro. Denmark's ambassador to the US, Jesper Moller Soresen, reacted with his own post entailing that both Denmark and the US, NATO allies and sovereign partners, stressing that their security interests are closely linked. With Greenland already being a part of NATO, he further added that Denmark has significantly increased its Arctic security spending and expects full respect for the kingdom's territorial integrity. The row between Denmark and the US over Denmark or Greenland is not a new affair. Trump attempted to purchase Greenland at the end of his first term, but Denmark refused. Upon returning to the White House in 2025, Trump repeatedly expressed his interest in annexing Greenland under US control, steps taken by his administration that appeared to advance that ambition, including the appointment of a special envoy to the territory, has sparked strong objections from Copenhagen as well as the European Union. Last year in March, US Vice President J.D. Vance's visit to the US bases in Greenland was flagged off by prominent Greenlandic politicians. The plan of his wife Usha Vance's visit further drew ire from outgoing Greenlandic Prime Minister Mette Egde, described the plan as aggressive and said the duo had not been invited for meetings. Iran's supreme leader has finally spoken after days of silence as protests over a collapsing economy continue to roil the Islamic Republic. In a rare public acknowledgement, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei on Saturday said that the economic demands of Iranian protesters are, quote, completely fair.
We talked to the protesters. They should talk. The authorities should talk to the protesters, but there is no point in talking to the rioters. The rioters should be put in their place. It is absolutely unacceptable for some people to come under various titles and names with the intention of destroying and harming the country, to stand behind the faithful, healthy and revolutionary marketers, to abuse their protests and create unrest. We must understand the enemy's work. The enemy does not sit still. It uses every opportunity. Seeing an opportunity here, they tried to use it. Of course, our officials were and will be in the field.
The remarks come after nearly a week of protests and mark Khamenei's first known reaction since demonstrations erupted over Iran's plunging currency and deepening cost of living crises. Violence has shadowed the protests. Iranian authorities say 2 more people were killed on Saturday, taking the death toll to at least 10 as unrest shows no signs of slowing. The protests, now entering their second week, have spread to more than 100 locations across 22 of Iran's 31 provinces, according to the ISW-CTP. Protests took place in 17 out of Iran's 31 provinces between December 28th and 31st and have since spread to 5 additional provinces. The civilian government led by President Masoud Pezeshkian has tried to signal dialogue but has openly admitted its power is limited under sanctions and systemic pressure. Internationally, pressure is building. President Trump has warned Tehran against using lethal force, saying the United States would come to the rescue if peaceful protests and protesters are violently killed. Comments that drew sharp warnings from Iranian officials, including threats against U.S. troops in the region. All of this comes against the backdrop of Iran's June war with Israel and near strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, a war that has further strained an already fragile economy.